The desert wind howled against the steel barriers lining the U.S Mexico border, carrying with it the scent of dust and desperation. María Álvarez tightened her grip around her 2-year-old son, Mateo, his small body shivering despite the warmth of her embrace. His fever had worsened in the past few hours, his skin hot to the touch, his breath shallow. She had risked everything to get here, fleeing the cartel violence in Michoacán, crossing the treacherous desert, and evading both criminals and authorities alike. Now, she stood before the towering fence, her fingers clutching the cold steel as she peered through the narrow gaps, eyes searching desperately for a sign of mercy. Border Patrol agents stood in a rigid line on the other side, their hands resting on their holsters, their eyes scanning the growing crowd of migrants who had gathered in the hopes of seeking asylum. The air was thick with tension, filled with murmurs of prayers, sobs of exhausted children, and the crackling of radios from the officers. But none of that mattered to María. Her focus was on one man, the man who held the power to change her fate. A motorcade approached, kicking up dust as black SUVs rolled to a stop near the border. Men in dark suits stepped out first, scanning the area with cold efficiency. Then he emerged, President Donald J. Trump. Even in the dimming light of the afternoon, his figure was unmistakable. The signature red tie, the confident gait, the unreadable expression. It was him. The 45th President of the United States had returned to the Oval Office in the 2024 elections, and now he was here in person, overseeing a border security check. The crowd erupted into frantic cries, desperate voices calling out in Spanish and broken English, begging for help, for mercy, for a chance. Maria's voice cut through the chaos. Señor Presidente, por favor, ayúdeme. Her voice cracked with emotion, raw and unfiltered. Trump paused. His piercing gaze swept over the migrants, his expression unreadable. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped forward. The Border Patrol agents shifted, uncertain, but did not stop him. The president, now just a few feet away from the fence, looked directly at María. She took a shuddering breath and pushed Mateo forward, holding him up so Trump could see. He's sick, she pleaded in Spanish, then switched to English. Please, my son. He needs a doctor. For a moment, the president remained silent, his face unreadable. The crowd held its breath. The border agents glanced at one another, awaiting orders. Then he spoke. What he said made María freeze. Maria's heart pounded in her chest as she held her sick child up toward the metal fence. Her eyes locked onto President Trump's expression. Her desperate plea for help had left her trembling, hoping against hope that the most powerful man in the United States might show a shred of mercy. Trump's gaze flickered to Mateo, the toddler's head lolling against Maria's shoulder. His small face was flushed with fever, his breathing shallow and labored. The president's lips pressed into a thin line. Then he spoke. Take him back, Trump said, his voice firm but not loud. For a moment, María didn't understand. Had she misheard? The wind howled through the metal slats, making it hard to distinguish his exact words. "K?" she stammered, gripping the steel barrier tighter. Take him back, he repeated, clearer this time. Back to Mexico. The words hit her like a blow to the chest. Around her, the other migrants gasped, their faces a mix of shock, disappointment, and anger. The border agents stood rigid, watching the interaction unfold but making no move to intervene. Maria's throat tightened. Please, he is sick. He needs a doctor. Her voice was barely above a whisper now, the weight of despair pressing against her ribs. We have nothing back there. The cartel. Trump held up a hand, silencing her. His face remained unreadable, his gaze sharp but not unkind. Then, to everyone's surprise, he did something no one expected. He crouched down, bringing himself level with María, his fingers gripping the cold steel of the border fence. You think this is the way? He asked, his voice lower now, almost personal. Walking through the desert? Carrying a sick child? Begging at the border? He shook his head, exhaling sharply. This isn't how it's done. Tears stung Maria's eyes. I had no choice, she whispered. There's always a choice, Trump shot back. You want help for your son? He gestured to the border agents behind him. These men have their orders. I have my policies. But if you really want a future, you can't stand at the fence waiting for a miracle. María felt her legs go weak. He was turning her away, just like that. After everything, after risking her life, her son's life, was this really the end? Then Trump did something even more unexpected. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded slip of paper. Without a word, he passed it through the gap in the steel barrier. Maria hesitated before reaching out and taking it. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the note. It was an address. And below it, a single instruction, written in neat, bold letters, "Go here. Say my name." Maria's eyes widened. What did this mean? What was he telling her? Before she could ask, Trump straightened and stepped back. The Secret Service agents moved in, guiding him away from the fence, back toward the waiting SUVs. "Mr. President," a reporter called from the sidelines. "Why did you speak to her? What did you tell her?" Trump didn't answer. He simply got into his vehicle, and just like that, the motorcade began to pull away, leaving Maria standing in stunned silence. The other migrants swarmed around her, whispering in hushed, urgent tones. "What did he say? What is that paper? Did he help you?" Maria looked down at the note again, her pulse racing. The question wasn't whether he had helped her. The question was what had just set in motion. Maria clutched the small piece of paper as if it were a lifeline. Around her, the murmurs of other migrants grew louder, some hopeful, others skeptical. "What does it say?" a woman beside her asked, peering over her shoulder. Maria quickly folded the note and pressed it to her chest. "It's nothing," she said, her voice tight. She wasn't sure why she was hiding it, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of instinct. Whatever this was, whatever Trump had just handed her, it was meant for her alone. She turned away from the fence, cradling Mateo, who whimpered softly in her arms. His fever was still dangerously high, and she had no time to waste. Wherever this address led, it had to be better than standing here, waiting for something that wasn't coming. Getting back to Mexico was easier than coming to the border. The migrants, once hopeful, were now turning back in disappointment, melting into the night, seeking shelter where they could. Maria moved quickly through the scattered camps, ignoring the questioning looks from others. A young man, barely older than a teenager, stepped in front of her. "You met Trump," he said, his eyes alight with curiosity. "What did he say?" "Nothing," Maria replied, shifting Mateo's weight on her hip. "You're lying." He smirked. "I saw him hand you something." Maria's heart pounded. Was she being watched? Were others now interested in what she had? She tightened her grip on her son. "I don't have time for this." She pushed past him, her nerves on edge. If word got out that she had something valuable, especially something linked to Trump, she could be in serious danger. She reached a small shelter run by volunteers where a kind woman offered her a place to rest for the night. Mateo's fever raged on, and Maria barely slept, watching him toss and turn. By dawn, she had made her decision. She was going to the address. Maria didn't have a phone, so she had to rely on asking strangers for directions. The address led to a location in Mexico City far from where she was. The journey would be long and dangerous. With Mateo burning up in her arms, she found a bus heading toward the capital. The ticket cost her almost all of her remaining money, but she had no choice. As the bus rumbled through dusty roads, Maria stared at the note, running her fingers over the words. "Go here. Say my name." Why would Trump, of all people, give her this? What was waiting for her? Was this some kind of test, a trap, or something else entirely? For hours, she watched the landscape change from desert to sprawling city. As night fell, the bus pulled into a station in Mexico City. Maria, exhausted and frightened, stepped onto the crowded streets. She asked around, showing the address to vendors and taxi drivers. Eventually, an old man pointed her in the right direction. "That place," he said, raising an eyebrow. "What's a woman like you doing there?" "I was told to go." The man hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful." Her heart pounded as she approached the building. A tall, glass structure with a name etched on the side. She stepped inside, clutching Mateo, who whimpered against her shoulder. The lobby was sleek and modern, filled with well-dressed people. It didn't look like a hospital or an immigration center. A woman at the front desk looked up. "Can I help you?" Maria swallowed hard. "I was told to come here," she said, voice trembling. She reached into her pocket and unfolded the note. "And to say his name." The receptionist frowned. "Whose name?" Maria took a deep breath. "Donald Trump." The woman's face changed instantly. Her eyes widened, and she quickly picked up the phone. After a tense exchange in hushed tones, she turned back to Maria. "Follow me." Maria's legs felt weak as she was led through a hallway, her mind racing. Whatever this was, whatever Trump had set in motion, she was about to find out. And she had no idea if she was ready. Maria's hands trembled as she followed the receptionist down a sleek, dimly lit hallway. The walls were lined with framed photographs, some of them showing world leaders shaking hands, others displaying business executives standing in front of tall buildings. The deeper they went into the building, the more Maria's fear gnawed at her. Who owned this place? Why had Trump sent her here? Mateo let out a weak whimper, bringing her focus back to what mattered most: his survival. Whatever was waiting for her beyond these doors, she would face it for him. The receptionist stopped in front of a large, dark wooden door. She knocked twice, then stepped aside, motioning for Maria to enter. Maria hesitated, then stepped forward, holding Mateo close. As the door swung open, she found herself in a spacious office lined with bookshelves and decorated with expensive furniture. A massive window overlooked the bustling streets of Mexico City. Behind a large desk sat a man in his 60s, dressed in a crisp navy suit. He looked up from a stack of papers, his sharp eyes locking onto hers. Maria froze. She knew this man. He was Eduardo Gonzalez, one of the most influential business magnates in Mexico. A billionaire with deep ties to real estate, politics, and finance. His name had appeared in news reports countless times, often linked to both U.S. and Mexican negotiations. What was she doing in his office? Gonzalez leaned back in his chair, studying her. So, Trump sent you. His voice was calm, controlled. Maria clutched Mateo tighter. He gave me an address, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He told me to say his name. Gonzalez nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something he already suspected. He gestured toward a chair. Sit down. Maria hesitated. Who are you? The businessman smiled slightly. Let's just say I'm someone who can help you. Maria sank into the chair, her body tense. Gonzalez pressed a button on his desk, and within moments, a woman in a medical coat entered the office. Take the boy, he instructed. Have him checked immediately. Maria flinched as the woman reached for Mateo, but Gonzalez raised a hand. He'll be safe. He needs medical attention, doesn't he? Maria hesitated for only a moment before allowing the nurse to take Mateo. Tears welled in her eyes as she watched them disappear through another door. Gonzalez folded his hands. Tell me, Maria, do you know why Trump sent you here? She shook her head. The businessman sighed. Donald Trump is not a man known for random acts of kindness. If he gave you this address, it's because you caught his attention. He leaned forward. And when Trump notices someone, it means he sees value in them. Maria's heart pounded. What do you mean? Gonzalez smiled, but there was something unreadable in his expression. Tell me about your life. Where are you from? Maria hesitated. Why did this man care? But with no other choice, she began to speak. She told him about her life in Michoacan, about the cartel violence, the threats, the fear. She explained how she had worked as an accountant before the gangs took over her town, forcing her to flee. Gonzalez listened intently, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he tapped a finger on his desk. You're educated, he said. Smart. Not like most people who come to the border. Maria bristled at his words, but he continued. That's why Trump sent you here. He doesn't believe in open borders, but he does believe in talent. He saw something in you. Maria's breath caught. What are you saying? Gonzalez exhaled. I run many businesses, Maria. Some of them require people who are good with numbers, people I can trust. He steepled his fingers. I can offer you a job. A legal job. With papers. A way to build a future for you and your son. Maria's eyes widened. You mean, I wouldn't have to cross the border? Gonzalez smiled knowingly. Why struggle in the U.S. when you can thrive here? He leaned forward. This is Trump's real strategy. He doesn't want desperate migrants flooding the border, he wants to invest in the right people before they even get there. Maria felt dizzy. This was not what she had expected. She had come to the border begging. But now she was being offered a future she never imagined. She should have felt relieved. Grateful. But instead, a single, chilling thought crept into her mind. Had Trump saved her, or had he just recruited her into something bigger? Maria sat frozen in her chair, Gonzalez's words ringing in her ears. A legal job. A future. A way forward that didn't involve sneaking past border agents or risking deportation. But why? Why had Trump chosen her? Why had he sent her to this man? She wasn't naive. Deals like this didn't come without a price. Gonzalez watched her, his sharp eyes reading every flicker of emotion on her face. I see the doubt in your eyes, he said, his voice smooth, patient. You're wondering if this is too good to be true. Maria swallowed. Is it? Gonzalez chuckled. That depends on what you consider true. He leaned forward. The U.S. doesn't want desperate migrants flooding its borders. But it does want smart, skilled, and loyal people. He tapped the desk. Trump has a vision, a way to control immigration by investing in talent before it ever reaches America. Maria's stomach tightened. So this is a test? Not a test, Gonzalez corrected. An opportunity. She shook her head. And if I say no? Gonzalez leaned back. Then you walk away, he said simply. You return to the shelters, maybe try your luck at the border again. But we both know how that ends. Maria's mind raced. Was this really her best option? She looked toward the door where Mateo had been taken. The image of her son burning with fever, suffering in her arms, flashed in her mind. She had come here to beg for mercy. Instead, she was being handed power. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The door opened and the nurse stepped in, carrying Mateo in her arms. His face, once flushed with fever, was now cooler. He was still weak, but he looked better. He'll be fine, the nurse said gently. We started him on fluids. His fever is coming down. Tears filled Maria's eyes. Gracias, thank you. She reached for her son, holding him close. His small arms wrapped around her neck, his breathing steady. He was safe for now. Gonzalez studied her. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he said. You'll stay here, rest. In the morning, you can decide. Maria looked down at her son. For years, she had been running from violence, from fear, from a life that had offered her no way out. And now, sitting in this office, she realized something. Donald Trump had not given her what she wanted. He had given her what she needed, a choice. A future on her own terms. But was she ready to take it? The sun set over Mexico City, painting the skyline in shades of gold and crimson. Inside a modern office building, Maria sat at her desk, flipping through financial reports. Her nameplate read, María Álvarez, financial analyst. She was no longer a migrant. No longer a refugee. She was something new. Something powerful. The TV on the wall played the evening news. A headline scrolled across the screen. President Trump announces new immigration reform. We will build stronger nations, not just stronger borders. Maria smiled faintly. She had wanted to cross the border. Instead, she had crossed into something far bigger than she ever imagined. And it had all started with